Last time on Star Trek The Next Generation.
You can get it, by the way. Hey, it's me, the devil! 230 JPEGs I've been ranting about.
We're being hailed by the Borg.
On screen.
Ich habe 10 Finger und 2 Hände. Ich habe 10 Finger, 2 Hände und 2 Arme.
Mr. Worf. Fire.
And now, the conclusion.
Ahoy, ahoy, friends and enemies, and welcome back to the German book covers for Star Trek. I wasn't expecting to make a sequel, but I actually heard back from one of the many emails I sent. So I was able to hear back from some cross-cult employees and make an interview out of it. This is also an excellent time to make some additions and corrections to the previous video, so I will likely call back to things I said or missed there. If you are watching this first, you will be very confused. Probably. Special thanks to the Cross Cult website, their Star Trek Romaine Facebook page, and the Trek Collective blog for all the new information and images I used in this video. And extra special thanks to Bernd Perplies and Christian Humberg for willing to answer my interview questions for a nonsense video. If you would like to hear what they said to me, feel free to skip ahead to this timestamp. So with that out of the way, let's begin with the additions. So previously, I skimmed over the Starfleet Corps of Engineers because I was already up to about 230 JPEGs. I didn't want to do another 70 plus book series. But new video, I start from minute 1. And besides, only 28 of the 74 ebooks were translated, but more on that later. Now, this is an ebook series that started around the dawn of the millennium, so things like covers were considered an afterthought, and were only made for obligation. The first, in America, just had Scotty, Geordi, and 2 Binars, and the Da Vinci on a plain blue background, with the SCE title on her chevron. The German version just has Geordi and the Da Vinci. Gotta keep something for the sequels. The second changed to red and added Sonia Gomez, while the German featured the Binards and Gomez. The third book was green in the West, but purple in Germany. This would be the last one to feature the silver triangle, as from the 4th book onwards, publishers would start to use original hand-drawn covers, while the Germans continued to use stock photos. Slight detour, but the 10th ebook is an epilogue to the Gateway series, which was a massive crossover / cross-through, where the whole galaxy deals with the same crisis. Cross-Cult only translated 3 of the 8 books in the crossover, and the endings to most of these books were in a hardcover anthology, which also wasn't covered by Cross-Cult, meaning German Trekkies would need to get the endings and the rest of the story from the Hein Verlag translations, but I digress. For the 13th book, it's just a sketch of a Ferengi, and the author's name is spelt wrong. There is a second version, which is in color and has the name correct, but the incorrect version seems to be on all digital storefronts. How odd. In the German version, he kinda looks like Armin Shimmerman. The Foundations trilogy, no, not Asimov, was centered around Scotty in his time from before TOS, during TOS, and after TNG. In the first, it's a young James Doohan and a Daedalus class. In the second, it's Scotty and the Enterprise. But for Foundations 3, it's Scotty in a TNG movie uniform and a prototype Kelvan ship. But for the German version, it looks more like a prototype Kelvin ship, if you catch my drift. Eh? In the previous video, I called the standardization of the covers rather boring, but there's an important necessity for it. In Germany, the only people reading Star Trek novels are die-hard collectors. Succinctly, nerds. When books are new, you gotta sell them, and with the dawn of ebooks, the covers are the first thing you'll see, while in bookstores it would be the spines. No spines on ebooks, but for the German collector audience, they're already sold on it, and would like them all to look the exact same in a uniform manner. These are old books. The only people buying them are a small niche group. The samey nature likely being attributed to the lack of reference material or stock images to use. But there has been a lot of effort to make them look similar enough to the English versions. Bonus points in 26 having the light shine on this woman's face through her neck guard. Despite only 28 of the 74 ebooks being translated to German, at least according to the Cross Cult website, The Star Trek and Remain Facebook page has shown that volumes 29 to 34 did have covers and were likely supposed to be released. Furthermore, there are also cover designs for the physical omnibus releases. Volume 5 was to be the Foundations trilogy, Volume 6 was books 20 to 24, and Volume 7 was 25 to 28, but they replaced an important Starfleet tombstone with the Funky Bugman. While the next 46 ebooks weren't brought over, there is one thing that did come over. By the end of SCE, they changed the logo, and that's what they would use on cross-cult covers. I missed quite a few TOS era books the last time. Wanted to know the story of Khan Noonien and Singh? How about Eugenics Wars, the rise and fall of Khan Noonien and Singh? And the German versions? Oh, if we squeeze them together, yes, we have another 2-part diptych. And here's an earlier version, which is red instead of orange. The last book, The Exile of Khan Noonien and Singh, was not brought over. When the Vanguard book series ended, it spun off into a short-lived series called Star Trek Seekers. The German covers are just the same, they just got rid of the big ugly number. I think the numbers are actually references to some original TOS era novels. Only half the series was brought over. I did find this neat looking prototype cover for the first English book though. Actually, speaking of the big ugly numbers, back when Bantam Books published Star Trek, they were prominent in the James Blish novelizations, and a decent amount of the covers were done by a fellow by the name of Eddie Jones, under the pen name of S. Fantoni. But interestingly, he also made a lot of covers that never made it to an American audience, selling them to the Dutch and German markets. Here's some I like. Eddie Jones sadly passed away in 1999. Live long and prosper, Mr. Jones. So I mentioned Hein earlier, being the previous translators and publishers for Star Trek in German markets. In the ebook era, since they still had some of the rights left over, they republished some of the pre-relaunch era novels with new digital-only covers. There are a lot of them, so here's a quick taste of some of my favorites. Some are inside the Delta, some are outside. This one is both in and outside. Mosaic is interesting because apparently Hein made an original cover for the original release, where they replaced Cadet Janeway with Tuvok. This is the version they based the ebook release on, which makes it look daft having 2 voyages. Same deal with Cybersong and Blackfire. They mirrored the uniforms, and they are the wrong uniforms. If you want to go through every single one, you can find them on German Amazon. Seriously, there's like 100 plus of them. Double Helix was a mini-series about a deadly strand of mutating DNA going about, and interestingly is told across multiple different eras. I missed it last video because it isn't on the CrossCult website, and it's also pre-relaunch, which CrossCult tended not to translate. The first book is set during TNG Season 1 and has the appropriate uniforms and Tasha. The German version has a white void, same characters and uniforms. The second book has Dr. Pawlowski, Gul Dukat, and Kira. But this is supposed to be set during the Bajoran occupation, and Kira's outfit looks a little too close to her Season 4 uniform. The German version corrects this by not giving her clothes. An earlier version has the heads in a different place. The third book has Ambassador Spock teaming up with Geriatric McCoy. The fourth book is Thomas Riker joining up with the Marquis. You can tell it's Thomas Riker because of the lack of sideburns. An earlier German version had him with sideburns, and B'Elanna's hair was also different. The fifth book brought back our favourite thuggish handsome man, Mackenzie Calhoun, teaming up with Captain Picard. The sixth and final book is, interestingly, set much earlier, with Tuvok and Beverly Crusher sporting the monster maroon. There's also an earlier version which sports Picard with hair, while the earlier German just has a different portrait used. Hey, since I brought it up, New Frontiers! I didn't miss any books last time, but I did find something interesting from the Star Trek Romain Facebook page. Martin Frey made a bunch of character profiles and shared them, presumably so you at home could use your favorite characters as profile pictures. Calhoun's scar is much more distinctive and less healed, so I think this is an earlier version than is shown in the covers. Elizabeth Shelby, Salar, and Robin Leffler, you can tell are just using recycled screenshots of the episodes they were in, especially since they always use the exact same ones. Actually, the differences in quality do make me wonder if original characters like Salita and Mark McHenry are entirely digital. I have some work-in-progress versions of the covers, and Salita here is drawn down to the exact pose. Honestly, props to Martin Frey for making every convincing artwork of characters without using reference material. And this was in the pre-AI days. Janos the Mugatu, Admiral Jellicoe, Admiral Nechiev, Zach Cabron, Siquan, apparently has a neckbeard. New Frontiers also included 2 characters from the animated series who were displaced in time. We have Arex and... oh my god! Thankfully, Martin made a revised version of Emrys. Kalinda, Sequan's sister, this is the first time I've seen her out of the wedding dress. Poundland Harry Kim, and in the least good looking of the bunch, Calhoun's estranged son, Zion. But lastly, we have... Okay, so in America, in order to make the bi-gender Hermat Burgoyne 172, they decided to give Hish the look of MacGyver in a bra. Martin Frey said, how do I make it obvious this alien has both male and female characteristics? Aha! Receding hairlines! Burgoyne is supposed to look incredibly pretty enough to be able to seduce McHenry and Salar. I don't think Sahi would look like Hulk Hogan. All of these profiles were used for the spines of the books in order to make them flow nicely from one to the other. Here's the group. Mark McHenry got a facelift and now he looks too pretty. While we're here, this is a nice place to segue into corrections. In the previous video, I noticed there were 2 versions of the Captain's Table once burned, and while I noticed the font change, I didn't notice that Burgoyne 172 was in the back. So he would absolutely not be here as they are not a captain. Actually, this is a placeholder, as in the completed version of the cover, their place is taken by Peter David, author of the New Frontiers series. Live long and prosper, PAD. Also in the last video I mentioned that Hein's version of Zweifrontenkrieg was just the English version with the classic uniforms. What I failed to notice was that Calhoun's famous scar was across his cheek rather than down it. The Quiet Place has an earlier artwork which depicts a woman in front of the wolf aliens. Excalibur Renaissance's cover contains Robin Leffler, but there are earlier versions, one with her in a ponytail and one without her at all. The engineering room also has Scotty's face on the sign. Gods Above with MRS and the other Zion. There's an earlier version where MRS had a trimmed down mane and the magic hand's arm has moved. In the A Time To series, I had a laugh when A Time To Heal had the previous book's artwork still on the cover. But this was an error, as they actually made a correct version for the cover. It's just they used the incorrect version for the Cross-Cult website. The same website is also missing the final book, A Time for War, A Time for Peace, which has Scotty paired with the USS Prometheus. The box set also has a cool mural of every character, except Scotty and Martok. Screw 'em, I guess. The Deep Space Nine book, A Stitch in Time, has a prototype cover. Different reference materials, but it gets the same point across. I also missed a book called Enigma Tales. Here's the English cover, and here's the German. I talked about the book spines earlier. This is what the DS9 books look like in German. The diptych for books 5 to 8, aka the Mission Gamma mini-series, were cut up and used for the spines of all 10 mainline DS9 relaunch books. The Mission Gamma books use the same covers in Germany anyway. The books are also labelled as 8-point-something, so I wonder if this is Cross-Cult's way of saying, this series is Deep Space Nine Season 8. Mike McMahon also wrote TNG Season 8 in just one book. A lot of plots from it were recycled into Lower Decks. Here's another picture of the book spines. Like I said earlier, this is all aftermarket releases for a collector's audience, so German Trekkies get a lot of uniformity in their book collection. I think this might actually be the personal collection of one of the authors for Star Trek Prometheus. I got this image from his Facebook page. While the Worlds of Deep Space Nine Bajor had Kira Nerys on the cover, there were 2 prototypes. One with Ro Laren, another with Cisco, who was on the cover of the English version. When I talked about the DS9 entry for the Gateways crossover, I neglected to mention that the cover artist was not Martin Frey, but was in fact a fellow by the name of Arndt Dreschler. Sadly, I would soon discover that he passed away in 2023. He seemed to have a long history of sci-fi novel covers, and as far as I can tell, this was his only contribution to Star Trek. Live long and prosper, Dressler. I found out what this woman's name is from the cover of the TNG relaunch novel, Losing the Peace. Her name is Jasminder Chowdhury. And while I brought up this prototype where she looked like an off-brand Linda Park, there was also this mock-up. This is the highest resolution I can find it at. It was only in some old advertisement material. I've previously said that Brinksmanship had a naff cover for both regions, but there was a mock-up for the English version, which included the USS Aventine. I wished either of the English or German releases went down this path with the Aventine. The two original characters on the Voyager covers are called Nancy Conlon and Hugh Cambridge. Also, remember when I said the standardization of the Voyager covers was boring? Yeah, it was probably done for the spines. Gotta have them nice and uniform. But it may also have been speed. Martin Frey made hundreds of these. To get the good New Frontier stuff, we needed to get some other books out the door quickly. Also, here's a clean render of the refitted Voyager. I still think the nacelles are like giving a diesel engine to an electric car, and it makes the profile look like a Sovereign. But they're new impulse engines. Neat. Last episode, I said that the new covers stopped right after Discovery started airing and releasing tie-in novels. There is a single exception. While most books contained promotional photos of the cast of Discovery, the Enterprise War did not. Instead, it kept a bird's-eye view of the Enterprise. The German version replaced it with Captain Pike and Commander Chin Riley. There was even a mock-up version with a different background. And that's everything. Time to move on to the main event of the video, my interview with authors of Star Trek Prometheus, Christian Humberg and Bernd Perplies. Because this interview was done through email correspondence, because I believe Mr. Perplies is not great at conversational English, I decided to request the help of two popular German YouTubers to help me deliver this interview to you. But unfortunately, one of them said no. So I'd like to welcome Escalation as the voice of Christian Humberg, and my co-worker Lorin as the voice of Bernd Perplies. I'm very sorry, Bernd, you'll be voiced by a woman. Easy one to begin with. Who are you, and what do you do?
My name is Christian Humberg. I'm a freelance novelist and literary translator. I live in Germany, where I spend most of my time writing fantasy, horror, sci-fi, and murder mystery novels, as well as children's literature. I write for various big publishing houses and love the fact that I get to visit many different genres in my work. Feel free to visit my German language website www.christianhumberg.de.
So I'm Bernd Perplies, and most of what Christian said is true for me too. I've written franchise novels for Star Trek, Battletech, and Shadowrun, as well as original stuff like Frontiersmen, space western novels, or the high fantasy adventure Der Drachenjäger, which is also available in English as Black Levithian, published by Tor Books. You can find more about me and my work on my website at www.bernd.perplies.de.
How did you get started at CrossCult?
It's all Markus Rode's fault. Markus is one of the editors at CrossCult, and was also the editor of a popular German nerd magazine called Geek. When he started the German language edition of Star Trek novels, as published by Simon & Schuster in the United States, he needed literary translators. So he asked some of the qualified freelancers he knew from the magazine, including Bernd and myself.
Which of the Star Trek novels was your favorite to read, and which was your favorite to translate?
I had the immense pleasure of translating the whole Deep Space Nine relaunch. That will always have a special place in my heart. I'm an avid fan of the franchise, and I have been for decades, so it was a dream come true to work on those novels and all the others.
I was first hired for the TNJ relaunch novels, which was great. Then I became the sole translator of the Enterprise relaunch, and I really liked what Michael A. Martin, Andy Mangels, and Christopher L. Bennett did with Captain Archer and his crew. There was this meaningful future the authors created, including the Romulan War and the subsequent rise of the Federation.
How did the opportunity to write the Prometheus trilogy arise? Did you propose it, or was it presented to you? How did it feel to go from reading Star Trek to writing it?
So Christian and I were always avid Star Trek fans. Contributing to this franchise ourselves, and not only as translators, was a dream we had for years. Yet, for years and years, it was an impossible dream, and since the license to do Star Trek novels was firmly held by US publishing houses. But then something changed. When J.J. Abrams' film Star Trek Into Darkness was approaching, Crosscult was invited to a business meeting with other German franchise licensors. Since Crosscult had been thinking about doing something special for the upcoming 50th anniversary of the franchise, and also shared our dream of original German Star Trek novels, they used this meeting to try and ask the license owners for permission. Most surprisingly, they didn't get a no as an answer, but a tentative let's talk, which we celebrated as a big success. And after 18 months of transatlantic deliberations, Hollywood, that is CBS, finally agreed to the deal of a German book trilogy, when we were officially given the green light and started writing.
Was there any challenges doing it backwards, writing in German and having it translated to English? Were pocketbooks / the Star Trek IP holders involved in any serious way?
Challenges for us? Not really. We wrote the books the way we always do, in German and for a German audience. Crosscult took care of the translations and communicated with the IP holders in the US. Their input was very important, by the way, since we really wanted our books to add to the stories told by our American colleagues. We knew all their books and didn't want to contradict them. CBS licensing was very helpful in making that happen, as were said colleagues themselves when we talked to them. Thanks, guys.
What made you pick the setting, the USS Prometheus? The setting, its place in the timeline, etc.?
Well, before writing the novels, we had a special challenge before us. First, we had to find a good story that would carry enough weight for the trilogy without creating conflict with the novels our American colleagues were writing at the time. That was really important for us. Also, we had to find an interesting ship and a memorable crew. Since we did not know what US authors like David Mack or Dayton Ward were doing with ships like the Enterprise E or Titan, we couldn't use them. Therefore, we needed our own ship. It had to be recognizable for fans, but at the same time, a blank page we could fill with our imagination. While researching, we realized that the USS Prometheus, the prototype Starfleet ship featured in Star Trek Voyager episode Message in a Bottle, had never been in great use by US authors. And despite being a fan favorite due to its cool feature of splitting the ship into 3 smaller warships, the Prometheus had only been name-dropped in US novels so far, so we had a winner.
What's your personal favorite thing about the Prometheus trilogy?
The fact that it actually exists. That 2 lifelong fans, and professional novelists from overseas got the chance to tell their very own officially licensed Star Trek adventures that then became a valid and beloved part of the whole litverse. How cool is that?
Exactly what Christian said. We had so much fun creating our own small footprint in this big universe. And it was the perfect Star Trek anniversary gift for German fans too. They were totally enthusiastic getting a trilogy from local writers. Getting all this positive feedback was awesome, especially during the opening of the FedCon 2018, where we stood live on stage next to Star Trek celebrities like William Shatner and George Takei.
Did you have any input in the book covers? Side note, I recently found out the Prometheus book covers were done by Tobias Richter, not Martin Frey.
The covers were done by Tobias Richter, probably the most prolific Star Trek CGI artist in Germany. We did send him our ideas of what should be on the 3 covers, and then we let him do his magic. I especially like that he did a brand new CGI rendering of the Prometheus, which we could use to show the ship from all perspectives, on a foldout included in Volume 1, Fire with Fire.
How do you feel personally about the state of Star Trek books right now? In the sense that following Picard, the Litverse, all those novels were relegated to a splinter timeline and retconned away, that the only novels right now are show tie-ins rather than original settings.
I miss Star Trek literature. A lot. We haven't seen that many new books in recent years, and that's a real bummer. There's so much Star Trek on TV, why don't we get more novels? IDW, who are doing the current run of Star Trek comic books, are telling amazing stories, with several series being published each month. Why are there not as many, or at least a few more, novels out there too? The writers are there, the story ideas as well. Where are the books?
That's the question, isn't it? I mean, they killed that Litverse splinter timeline, which was sad enough. But now they have about 20 years worth of stories, from the fight of the Enterprise E crew against Shinzon in 2379 to the new adventures of Picard in 2399. Why don't they use the time to tell some adventures? They don't have to rescue the galaxy. They just could do some engaging personal stories. I also miss the Letworth timeline. They destroyed it with the Coda trilogy. To do it on their own terms, than just being cancelled like Disney did it with the Star Wars expanded universe back in 2014. But they could have saved it to do some other Splinter timeline novels. I think many fans would have liked that very much.
Lastly, if you were given the chance, would you do it again? Write another Star Trek novel? Or would you prefer to write for something else? Another IP or something original?
I would love to write another Star Trek tale, Prometheus or otherwise. They still have my number at Federation HQ, so who knows? Maybe one day they'll call again. With regards to other IP, well, I've always wanted to write a Quantum Leap novel, original version, not reboot, and an Alien Nation novel, and a Highlander novel, and a Ghostbusters novel. Do they still make any of those, or am I just showing my age?
To quote a famous Vulcan, I have been and always shall be a Star Trek fan. So yes, of course, I would love to tell another Prometheus story or an Enterprise B adventure. I love these movie era ships. CBS and CrossCult know my number, they just have to call and ask.
Thank you to Mr. Humberg and Perplies for being willing to put up with my nonsense for this video. And special thanks to Escalation and my co-worker Lorin for also willing to put up with my nonsense. Thank you. You two are real stars. Thank you.
Alright, I hope you enjoyed the recording. It's been pretty fun to read this. I've never been the voice of an author.
Thank you.
That is all for this German Star Trek video. I probably won't do another one unless I can get an interview with the man Martin Frey himself. But unless that happens, this'll be it for me, and I'll be logging off. Thanks for watching, and computer, end simulation.
Number 8? Number 8? Sorry, I hope you get that Simpsons reference.